Welcome to the webinar. We got my man Rohan will be joining us today to help moderate and chat and moderate the Q&A. So if you have any questions that come up along the way, be sure to drop those in the chat, and we'll be sure to answer those at the end. We've got fan favorite Brittany Barchok standing by as well. She might have to help me out with some of that Q&A, but we'll see. So we'll get to all your questions at the end. I'm excited to walk you through something that has become one of the most powerful scalable channels in the private markets today. And this presentation is called How to Run an 8-Figure Fund Manager Program. And the goal is simple. So we're going to show you the exact system that top sponsors that we work with are using right now to raise capital more efficiently, with less friction, and with far less of their time. A lot of sponsors love the idea of working with fund managers, but the problem is they try it and it turns into a second job, especially when they're trying to close a deal or raise capital for their own fund. So what I'm going to show you today really just solves that. It's the same framework used by sponsors who consistently raise 8 figures through fund-to-fund partners. We're going to break down everything step by step, make it simple, and give you a model that you can plug straight into your business. Sound good? All right, let's get it. Quick legal reminder. This is for educational purposes only. Tribevest is not a law firm. We don't give legal, tax, or investment advice, and I am an attorney, but I'm not your attorney, so please seek your own counsel. Cool. All right, let's go. Okay, first, to get into my world, I set up this QR code, really gateway into a ton of free tools and courses and things I used to sell, but now it's all free, so scan that and let's stay in touch. And if we haven't met, I'll just give them a quick 10-second bio. So I've closed billions in real estate transactions as an attorney, capital raiser, and deal maker. I've worked in big law for 7 years before starting my own boutique securities law firm called Raise Law. I founded companies, but most importantly for this presentation, I'm a fund manager. I'm a syndicator, a capital raiser, an operator, and I've been on the business side and I am on the business side of capital raising too. So that perspective is really why I'm here today, because I know exactly how this game works, where people get stuck, and how to set yourself up to win. So I understand your problems because I have them too, and I'm living in them every day. The goal of this webinar is straightforward. I want to show you how to turn fund managers into a real capital raising channel without becoming a drain on your time and your team and really your sanity. So most sponsors love the idea of working with fund managers until they try it without any direction. And that's when they get discouraged, they get lost. And done the wrong way, one fund manager can eat up, 5 to 10 hours of work in your week, which turns you off, and it really turns you off to the idea. And the results usually don't justify that effort. So, but done the right way, this becomes one of the most scalable, predictable, and profitable channels in your business. So today, I'm going to show you how to build a program that consistently raises 8 figures and fully funds your deals. By the end of the session, you'll understand the structure, the cadence, the workflows, and the tools the top sponsors are using so you can plug the same model into your business and immediately improve the way your fund managers raise capital. All right, real quick, the agenda, what we're going to go over today, and so you know exactly where we're headed. First, we're going to talk about how to replace endless one-on-one calls with what we call a cohort model. This is one of the biggest unlocks, and we haven't really talked about this before, but it takes the pressure off you and creates a far more scalable environment for your fund managers. Second, we'll walk through how to build a step-by-step playbook under your brand, something your fund managers can follow without you having to repeat yourself every single day or every single week. Third, I'll show you how to document everything in videos, templates, and SOPs so your team can run the system without you needing to be involved with every detail. And finally, we'll break down how Tribevest fits into this process and how we can work together. So how we reduce the friction, handle compliance, set up entities, manage onboarding, and take the back office, lift off your plate and your fund manager's plate so you can focus on leadership and relationships instead of logistics. All right. Let's begin with the end in mind. When you think about launching a fund-to-funds channel, you need to begin with the end in mind. Most sponsors look at fund managers as a side experiment, something they test casually. But when you build this the right way out of the gate, it becomes one of the biggest multipliers in your entire business. Here's what a fund-to-fund channel actually unlocks for you. It gives you a scalable capital raising arm without adding any full-time staff. It creates more predictable inflows so you aren't restarting from zero with every raise. It deepens relationships with your top partners and turns them into long-term producers instead of one-off contributors when you go deal to deal. And really, most importantly, it really removes the constant back and forth that happens when fund managers are operating in the dark, and then you get discouraged, and then you aren't able to build this channel as effectively and efficiently as you should. And when you centralize all the training, the structure, and the messaging, you stop answering the same questions over and over, and you start leading at a much higher level. The real secret to scaling a fund manager program is simple. You run cohorts, as I mentioned before, and most fund managers have the exact same questions, the same fears, the same sticking points, and the same bottlenecks over and over and over again. So when you work with them one at a time, you end up answering identical questions over and over, and it becomes a massive drain. Cohorts change the whole game. They fix this, and instead of 10 individual calls, you do one kickoff call with 10 people. Instead of repeating training, you deliver it once and everyone gets aligned at the same time. This one-to-many delivery is where the leverage really is. When fund managers learn together, they hear the same answers, they move in the same place and the same pace, and they feed off each other's energy. It creates community, it creates accountability, it even creates competition and scarcity, and it makes everything more efficient for you. So if you want to scale this program to 7 or even 8 figures without burning out, cohorts are the foundation. Here's how you actually run a fund manager cohort in a way that keeps everyone aligned and keeps you out of the weeds. First, group your fund managers in a 4 to 8 week cohort, and we can chat about that on how you want to structure it, but you can make it even longer if you need to, but that range tends to be the sweet spot. Everyone starts together, everyone learns together, everyone moves through the same roadmap, through the same system at the same pace. When you do this, something powerful happens. They stop operating in isolation, they stop guessing, they stop asking questions that are repeated over and over again. Instead, you give them the same answers all at once. They learn from each other's questions, and they feed off the shared momentum. A single 1 hour kickoff call with 10 fund managers replaces 10 individual calls. Same for your weekly check-ins. You're delivering once, not 10 different times. The cohort creates community, accountability, competition, and efficiency. Keeps your fund managers engaged, it keeps them moving, and it keeps you from having your time fragmented off by one-time requests. If you want this program to scale, this structure is essential. All right. One of the biggest mistakes I see sponsors make is leaving their fund managers to figure things out on their own. If you leave them like that, they're going to get lost, they're going to get stuck, they're going to stop. And when there's no roadmap, they lose that momentum and they get confused. And again, they just give up, or, they start just peppering you with random questions that might not even advance from where they are. Instead of letting them wander, you give them a clear week by week plan, a simple timeline, something that tells them exactly what to do, when to do it, and how to stay on pace. For example, you can take a look at this structure here, and this is really just an example. But in week 2, they're setting up their marketing. They're creating a funnel from your template and loading all the email sequences they might need. No guessing, no improvising. Week 3, they're getting their SPV set up with Tribevest. They complete onboarding, they set up their portal, and they get their documents loaded from your sponsor template. And then by week 8, they've completed their raise. They wire their full contribution to you as the lead sponsor, and they get paid and you get paid. This is the entire point of the roadmap. You eliminate friction, uncertainty, and the drop off that happens when fund managers aren't sure what to do next. Here's another one of the highest leverage moves that you can make in your fund manager program, and that's to turn your cohort sessions into a real course. And this can happen really naturally. You just have to think about it beforehand so that you can record everything, and that's where this compounding effect really kicks in. So every time you run a cohort, you record the sessions, you record any kind of Q&A that you give, you take the exact questions fund managers ask, and you turn them into shorter explainer videos, checklists, templates, all those things. And of course, with AI, it just makes it super easy to do that nowadays. So you take that and you host it inside of a platform like Go High Level or Kajabi or School or any of those types of platforms that are out there nowadays. And now you have a training system that works without you. So now you can just send them a link, give them access, and you look like a pro because you have all this stuff sorted out and figured out. New fund managers can go through the course in their own time before your next deal even launches. So they can learn the fundamentals, they can get aligned on your process, how you run things, and come into the cohort already warmed up and prepped. And this is how you stop repeating yourself. And that's how you scale is by being able to put something like a cohort together and then recording all the pieces, putting a course together and enabling your potential fund managers to self-educate. You create the knowledge once and you let the system teach you every time after. It saves you hours, it speeds up your fund managers, and it keeps everyone operating off the same playbook. All right, now let's talk about how to actually run a cohort call. So the structure is simple, and this is just an example, but this is what we've seen this kind of worked over and over again. It's a basic 1 hour format. You start at the top of the call with wins, maybe just 5 minutes, give everyone momentum and reinforces the progress is happening across the group. Again, creating some sort of, in my mind, competition. I love to hear success from other people, but that also drives me to be more successful and to take action as well. From there, you spend the next 15 minutes reviewing the content for the week. This could be setting up the templated marketing package, building an investor pipeline, or walking through a key part of the process that everyone needs to understand. Then we move to the deal deep dive. So this is where you show them how to pitch the deal, how to explain the story, how to position the opportunity, and how to handle the most common objections they're going to hear, and then wrap up with an open Q&A. And this is where the cohort format shines because one person's question becomes everyone's answer. Instead of answering the same question 10 times, you answer it once and the entire group benefits. And again, you record that and you make content out of that so that those things become repeatable and scalable. This keeps the session tight, impactful, predictable every single week. Your fund managers know exactly what to expect and you stay in full control of the process. All right, let's jump into Tribevest a little bit. So one of the biggest challenges in managing fund managers is simply keeping track of where everyone is. Who's set up, who's onboarding investors, who's actually raising capital, who's stalled out. And without that visibility, you end up chasing people. You are following up constantly, you're wasting a ton of your time. And this is where Tribevest gives you some leverage. Inside our Trident platform, you can see exactly where each fund manager is in the process. You can see who has their entity formed, who's completed onboarding, who has their bank account open, who's adding investors, who has capital committed, and who has capital that's actually been wired. And instead of guessing and hoping, you get real-time visibility, and this lets you lead more effectively. If someone is falling behind, you can address it early. You can bring in more fund managers if you see that the folks that you've already engaged with are going to come up short. You can double down on supporting those that are crushing it. The ones that are stalled, you can help them out and see where they're stuck and see if you can help them. It just really eliminates the blind spots and it allows your fund management program to operate like a true system instead of a loose collection of individuals trying to figure out this thing on their own. All right, as the lead sponsor, your time is the most valuable asset. So you really need to focus on the high leverage activities. And the biggest trap sponsors fall into is spending their time on activities that don't move the needle. Responding to random texts, repeating the same explanations, answering the same questions, handling administrative tasks. None of that really grows your capital base at the rate that you need. So your job is to stay focused on high leverage activities. That means co-hosting webinars with your fund managers, getting in front of their investors. A single 1 hour webinar can raise millions of dollars or more. And that's leverage. It means creating scalable content, short videos, deal explainers, objections, training, marketing scripts, things like that. Excuse me. It means building deeper relationships with your top performing fund managers. And that's really, really important. I mean, these are the people that are going to bring you capital, not just for the deal that you're working on with them now, but for every single deal and every single fund that you do in the years forward. It means hosting fund manager summits, getting to know people face to face, not just over Zoom, bringing people together, elevate your brand, your credibility, and your seriousness of the program. It means refining the investor facing story. The clearer their story, the easier it is for your fund managers to raise capital. And when you focus your time in these areas, your fund managers perform better, your program expands faster, and your entire capital raising operation becomes more efficient. All right, let me show you what this looks like in the real world. This isn't theory. This is an actual partner who implemented this system and scaled it fast. RaiseMD through Viking built a community specifically for prospective ICAs. They didn't just hand people documents and hope for the best. They created a structured environment. They collaborated with us on educational modules. They taught their fund managers how to partner, how this partnership works, how fund to fund model works, and how Tribevest fits into the process. They even brought us to in-person events to talk about fund to fund structures and present to their group. That alignment is why their program works so well. 7 deals, 14 ICAs, 22 fund to funds created, over $21 million raised. That's the power of running a fund manager program with structure. When you put the right system in place, your partners raise more and you close more deals. All right, here's another example of what a strong fund manager program can do. This partner, Aspen Funds, you've probably heard of them. They set a big company goal, and that's that they wanted to bring in 40 ICAs in a single year. And they built the environment that made that possible. For every deal, they created a dedicated data room specifically for fund to funds. Everything was organized, everything was clear, all the steps were laid out. Their fund managers always knew exactly where to go for the materials they needed. They also hosted ICAs for a 2-day session in-person event in Kansas City, training, community, alignment, and even a Chiefs game for after the sessions. Events like that create loyalty, momentum, and you just can't get that from scattered one-on-one calls. And the results, 6 funds, 36 ICAs and counting, 42 fund to funds created, almost $28 million raised. All right, let's talk about what Tribevest fits into all this. Tribevest has completely changed the way that fund to funds get done. We've taken something that used to be slow, it used to be expensive and risky, and we've made it safe, fast, and scalable. Startup cost used to be $25,000 or more, probably more. That's really just talking about the legal piece. Hundreds of hours dealing with formation, compliance, banking, onboarding, investor management, putting all the puzzle pieces together. And now we can do it in just 5 days, 7 business days, we say. It can take you 4 to 8 weeks just to get an SPV live the old way. But now, like I said, 5 to 7 business days. And of course, I mentioned that it was $25,000 just to get started the old way. But for us, we start at $5,000 as a startup cost. And that includes all the back office, all the legal, all the setup, all the ongoing management. It's crazy what's actually included in all this. So instead of taking months and thousands of dollars, the entire SPV is ready quickly and at a great price. SPV manager can now earn around $100,000, for example, for organizing $1 million of capital. That's kind of the baseline that we're seeing out there. And that just completely changes the incentive structure and what you're able to accomplish. Minimum raise drops, time drops, complexity drops, and suddenly every limited partner can actually become a fund manager. And that's the big shift that we're seeing happening in the private markets right now, where traditionally limited partners, passive investors sat on one side of the wall. They invested passively and the general partners ran the deal. And there was kind of this invisible wall separating the two groups, but LPs had no real path to participate beyond just writing a check. But because of Tribevest, that wall is gone. With fund of funds, any accredited LP can now become a fund manager. They can aggregate capital, they can create their own SPV and participate in a deal at a higher level. They can 2x, even 3x their returns that they would have gotten if they would have just participated as a passive investor. And because the new model is fast, it's compliant, it's affordable, it opens the door for way more capital partners to step into this role. So that's why your fund of fund channel becomes so powerful. You're no longer limited to a handful of big LPs. Every motivated investor in your ecosystem can raise a pool of capital for your deal. And that's how a sponsor goes from raising a couple million through fund of funds to raising 8 figures per deal. The wall is gone, and that completely changes the scale of what you can build. Now let's zoom out for a second and answer the simple question. What exactly is Tribevest? Tribevest is a platform built specifically to support capital partners and lead sponsors. We're the infrastructure behind the scenes that makes fund to fund safe, fast, and compliant at scale. We handle the entire formation process. And I mean, that means entity formation, offering documents, exemption filings, getting your EIN, registered agent, banking, compliance, everything. We handle investor onboarding, signatures, accreditation if needed, secure fund flow, distributions, cap table setup, tax filings. Instead of needing 3 or 4 different vendors to pull off a single SPV, everything lives in one place. And that's why this system works. It's clean, it's consistent, and it's designed for speed. We now support over 200 capital raisers. We've set up and managed more than 250 fund of funds, and we've powered more than $175 million of capital raised through the platform. And that's just in a little under 2 years. Tribevest is the operating system for modern capital raisers. All right, how it works. Now let's walk through how the entire system works from end to end. This is the full workflow that connects you, your fund managers, and Tribevest into one smooth process. First, we make sure you're a good fit as a motivated lead sponsor. Then comes the partnership agreement. This is where your expectations and our expectations are formalized, so there's no ambiguity. Next is the program guide. This is your playbook. It outlines expectations, timelines, responsibilities, and economics, so everyone is aligned from day one. And alongside of that, we move the ICA funnel and the webinar. You identify the right ICAs to bring into your program, people who have the right network, the professionalism, and the desire to raise capital the right way. Then we conduct a deal intake to officially kick off your deal. After that, we look at the fund-to-fund economics, which sometimes is a tripping point. So we actually do this with you to figure this all out. And this is where the compensation structure is made clear to you, your fund managers, and even the passive investors down the line. It ensures everyone's compliant, motivated, focused, and motivated. So then you hand off your qualified fund managers, Tribevest. We go to work. We handle all those things that I mentioned in the prior slides. And once the capital is raised, funds are wired directly to your deal, clean, transparent, and fully documented. All right, so here's something I want to touch on really quick because people tend to get this confused. Investor portals like the ones you know, InvestNext, Cashflow Portal, Syndication Pro, fantastic tools. And they've completely transformed the way that sponsors present deals in a professional way to passive investors. They're clean, they're polished, and they make the front end experience really easy. They've got the dashboards, updates, data rooms, deal pages, all that's great. But here's the difference between those portals and Tribevest, because a lot of people just think of Tribevest as either one, just a portal, or two, just a way to get legal documents. But investor portals only cover the front end. They don't handle the back end work that actually makes a fund of fund safe and compliant. An investor portal can't form your entity or get your EIN. It doesn't draft institutional grade offering documents. It doesn't file your SEC Form D exemptions or your blue sky notices. It doesn't open business bank accounts for you or have built-in KYC, AML. It really definitely doesn't handle investor onboarding and pushing your investors through signing docs and sending their investment funds. It doesn't manage secure fund flow, and it doesn't manage the records that you need. It definitely doesn't handle annual filings, K1s, dissolution. All these things are included with Tribevest that investor portals do not traditionally do. So while investor portals are amazing for passive investor facing presentations, they leave big gaps on the operational and compliance side. Now, that being said, we do also provide an investor portal. Trident is what we call it. It is just about ready to launch, and we provide that to the ICAs and their passive investors. But know that you, as the lead sponsor, can continue using your own investor portal that you've already worked so hard to integrate with. We're not here for you to sell you an investor portal that you have to use. Your ICAs will use it. Their passive investors will use it, but you don't have to use it. You can continue using the portal that you're already using today, and your ICAs can raise for your deal and use Trident to manage their investors and plug seamlessly into your own investor portal. Your fund managers get one system to do all those things that I mentioned that Tribevest does, and you continue using your own portal just like you do today. This is what allows fund manager programs to scale. It's not about replacing tools. It's about completing the capital raising stack for you. When a capital partner works with Tribevest, here's what they get. They get fully compliant, turnkey fund to fund setup, completed in 7 business days, not 7 weeks, 7 days. They get support from formation all the way to dissolution, everything that I previously mentioned. They get a dedicated client success team, real people who walk them through the process, answer the questions, keep them moving. They get a system that scales, a system that lets them raise capital legitimately, cleanly, professionally, without having to build a legal department, compliance team, investor relations team, all of that. And this is why capital partners stay with the platform. They're not just getting documents or an investor portal. They're getting the entire infrastructure that they need to raise capital the right way. All right, real quick, let's go through the timeline of those 7 business days in the setup. Here's what it actually looks like. We start off with a kickoff call. So where the ICA meets their account manager, gets expectations laid out. They understand exactly what the next steps are. There's no guessing, there's no confusion. Everything is lined up for the next 7 days to get their capital raise going off the ground. Then we move into the initial setup. We handle the LLC filing, obtain the EIN, open the business banking account, and that's usually very quick. That usually gets done in 2 business days or so. And then we file the Form D so we can make your offering official. We draft a complete set of offering documents based on the fund manager's inputs, and those are completed within 7 business days. Once the setup is complete, the SPV is ready to raise capital, and we celebrate that with a kickoff call, and we call that the capital raise call. From there, the real fun begins, or I should say the real work begins, the actual capital raise. We help the ICA's investors through the review and the signing of the offering documents, collect accreditation letters, onboard investors onto the platform, and we usher them to wire their investments into the SPV. And then ongoing administration kicks in. Tribevest handles the yearly K1s, the accounting, bookkeeping, managing the cap table, the distributions, and providing continued support for both the investors and the ICAs throughout the life of the fund. The entire system is built so a fund manager can go from zero to fully formed, ready to raise in 7 business days. So what investor portals did for communication, Tribevest is doing for operations. Investor portals made the front end of capital raising beautiful and streamlined, but we make the back end compliant, organized, and scalable. This is why we say Tribevest completes the capital raising stack. Investor portals revolutionize the way that deals are presented to passive investors and through dashboards and documents and updates and visibility, but they didn't solve the operational side. They didn't solve formation, compliance, banking, onboarding, secure money movement, tax filings, but that's where Tribevest kicks in. We're powering the compliant formation and administration of single deal fund of funds. Tribevest becomes the infrastructure backbone of the modern private market. All right, let's jump into any questions. Rohan, if you want to jump back in.
Perfect. Awesome. That was a good presentation. If you guys have any specific questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A. I had a couple general questions that I think would be good here. Seth, when you obviously you work with a ton of lead sponsors in your role. When you look at the ones who are really crushing it with Tribevest and doing really well, and then the other ones who haven't scaled as much, what do you think the people who scale with Tribevest do a really good job doing?
I kind of relate it to because I own a couple of gyms and as part of a franchise, and the great part of being part of a franchise is that they give you the playbook. They tell you exactly what you need to do, how to do it, when to do it, and the same thing applies here. We've put this program together because we've seen people do it successfully, and you just need to follow the playbook. Like just take the steps necessary to build your program, and we can show you exactly how to do that. So get signed up early, get the conversation going with Tribevest, follow the playbook that we've already seen work over and over again, and it's going to work for you. Same thing applies to franchises. Like that's why you do it. It's because the playbook's already out there. All you have to do is follow it.
No, I think that's really cool. Um, when you think about when a lead sponsor looks to get set up their fund manager program, Seth, What do you think are some of the hurdles that they encounter, and how does kind of Trivest help guide them through some of those hurdles?
Yeah, love for Brittany to jump in there as well. I know she's got lot to say about that because she works on the front end with many of the lead sponsors as they kind of come into the funnel and come into the program.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I think some of the important things to that we're looking at when we're talking to lead sponsors that want to launch their program is one, I think making it a priority. I mean, I think and doing it before there's an active deal. I think making sure that you're spending the time to have a plan and like Seth said, like it's very similar to the franchise model where we've got a done for you playbook. We've essentially been learning and getting feedback for the past 2 years on this. And so we know what works well for partners and we know what doesn't work well. And what doesn't work well is when there's a deal already on the table. You want to make sure that you're planning and preparing and implementing before there's a deal because we just know what it's like when there's a deal. That's what you're focused on. That's your priority. You're trying to get the money ready to go, and you don't have time to, implement a program at that point. I think the other things to look at is look at how you're already marketing to your retail investors, the majority of your capital stack. That you can leverage a lot of the same motions that you've already done to market to your retail investors. So I take a lot of folks through an exercise on our consultation call to kind of get the gears turning about like, hey, what are the things that you're already doing? Let's see if we can align some of these fund manager program pieces to the motions that you already have in place because we don't want to create more work for you. So we go through that exercise as well. So I think it's just figuring out it like what's your capacity and appetite and knowing that Tribevest has a pretty much done for you playbook. It's just implementing it and implementing it at the appropriate time and just start to get that motion turning and system in place so that you can start growing capital aggregators and identifying them. Um, I think another thing that comes to mind is maybe there's like lead sponsors that are just, starting out and they're like, hey, like, how do I find capital aggregators? That's a question we get a lot of the time is where do I find these people? And so I think that's one of the reasons why like running a cohort is important, because the opportunity here is to turn, there is an avenue to turn LPs that have invested with you several times, maybe been through a full cycle with you, know your deals, turn them into capital aggregators. So have them understand and learn if this is a path for them where they want to create a capital aggregation business. That's really what we're trying to unlock here at Tribevest by like having those fund to fund SPVs stack and create a pretty, great business for you. We've got several capital aggregators that we work with that have really taken this and run with it. And they have a pretty meaningful business that they've built. So I think there's a lot of areas. I think it's just really you gotta hopefully don't have a deal yet and have the resources and bandwidth to actually implement the program. I think that would be my summary.
Cool. No, I think that's really good. I think something I've mentioned in the past for anyone watching who is looking for fund managers, another good place you can look is like educational communities. I know Raise Masters is one. There's another one called M1 Real Capital. It's by Marcin. So those two are good places where they have hundreds of people who raise capital and a lot of them are looking at deals. So if that's something that you do need, that's another place you can look beyond your own LP base, if that makes sense. Cool. Corey. So this is a kind of like multi-level marketing where you recruit. I guess, Brittany, maybe we've had some previous webinars articulating like what this does, but maybe if you can explain a little more about how the structure works, and then I think that'll be a good way to close it off.
Yeah, sure. So good question, Corey. I guess you could kind of think about it like that, but I think the opportunity is like we're in a market where there's now an opportunity where people that are passively investing or aren't as familiar with real estate investing have the opportunity to be pulled into this market. So people aren't pushed into investing in things, they're pulled in. And so what a capital aggregator acts as is a connector. And so what they do for lead sponsors that work with them is they're pulling people that are outside of their network's network into their deals. And so we're getting more accessibility into the deals than there ever was before. And that's really what we're trying to do here. We're trying to open up the market, and capital aggregators are really good connector and resource to get that to happen. So for example, like we work with a ton of doctors and they might be working in a hospital setting and talking about real estate or their investments with their fellow doctors, and they're interested in, hey, how do I get into this deal? That is a great way to pull in people that are outside of your lead sponsor network into the deals that they would have never known about. So I think that's really the opportunity here is to open it up to people that would have never known that these deals exist.
Yeah, I think what I was talking to a lead sponsor about is that it's basically a fund manager is just a fancy affiliate. Like again, I'm sure you guys are all familiar with like affiliate marketing where like, you know, work with another business and receive some level of compensation. Obviously in this space you can't just directly receive compensation because then, you're breaking the law. But the good news is that like through this structure, you still get to basically set up an affiliate program, and a lot of the largest businesses, both in this space and in the world, frankly, have grown through an affiliate marketing model. So I think it's a very fascinating way to do it in this space. Cool. Any final questions, or Brittany or Seth, any final thoughts?
I would just say, really want to tell everyone to scan the codes here, book the call with Cam. Cam's the nicest guy in the world, so don't be threatened by him. You'll love him. So scan the code, book the call, grab the freebie there, the Fund of Funds Accelerator, and that's how you can progress this thing forward and keep the momentum going.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, everyone. The replay should go out in the next 12 to 24 hours. And if you have any questions, obviously schedule a call with Cam. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, y'all.